There exists a fine line, almost invisible to the unwary, that separates true power from its most vulgar imitation. A distinction that defines leaders and destroys empires. A boundary that, once crossed, transforms respect into repulsion, influence into resistance, loyalty into betrayal. Niccolò Machiavelli, the master of realpolitik, whispered in his secret writings about this dangerous dance. Between the lines of The Prince and in the discourses on the first decade of Titus Livy, he revealed a truth that the powerful ignore risk. Genuine confidence whispers, while arrogance shouts. One sustains itself by its own weight, the other collapses at the first breath of adversity. Observe around you, in corporate media, in personal relationships, on social media, in major political decisions. Can you identify this subtle but devastating difference? In a world hungry for attention, where applause is currency and validation is addiction, how can one distinguish the rock of confidence from the quicksand of arrogance? Many stumble on this invisible line, confusing the mask with the face, the echo with the voice. History is full of leaders who could not make this crucial distinction. Empires that crumbled, not from external attacks, but from the internal erosion caused by arrogance disguised as strength. Companies that plummeted from peak to abyss because their leaders confused self-confidence with self-delusion. Relationships destroyed because one of the partners could not distinguish between assertiveness and arrogance. This is the difference that Machiavelli understood deeply, not as a moral lesson, but as a pragmatic observation of the reality of power. A difference that, as we shall see, is not only psychological, but strategic. Not only ethical, but tactical. A difference that, understood and applied correctly, can transform your presence, your influence, and your legacy. But before unveiling the path of true confidence, we need to recognize the face of the most common imposter: arrogance. The one that seduces with promises of quick power, but delivers only temporary. Unveiling arrogance. The illusion of power. Arrogance, my friend, is the refuge of the insecure. A fragile armor built upon the fear of not being enough. It manifests in noise, in the incessant need to prove worth, to diminish others to feel big. It is the excess that tries to cover up the. Observe how it presents itself. In the tone of voice that's too loud, in constant interruption, in the impossibility of admitting error or ignorance. In unnecessary name-dropping, in the curriculum vitae recited without anyone having asked. In mansplaining, in gaslighting, in the need to have the last word. Arrogance is the psychological equivalent of a peacock with artificial plumage. The more elaborate the display, the less authentic the substance behind it. Seneca, the great Stoic philosopher, already warned, true happiness is to enjoy the present, without anxious dependence upon the future. The arrogant, on the contrary, lives anxiously, seeking in others' gaze the confirmation they lack internally. Each compliment is a temporary dose that briefly relieves the pain of deep insecurity. Each criticism, an existential threat that needs to be attacked and destroyed. Seneca also observed that people fear not being admired, and it is this fear that drives arrogance. It is the secret terror of being common, irrelevant. It is the panic of looking within and finding emptiness. Machiavelli, with his relentless observation of human nature, understood that the ostentation of arrogance was an invitation to ruin. He who deceives will always find those who allow themselves to be deceived. But also he who exhibits himself too much with weaknesses. The arrogant prince is an open, his insecurities a map for his enemies. In The Prince, Machiavelli warned against excessive ostentation. Nothing makes a prince so esteemed as great enterprise and setting a fine example. Note that he emphasizes rare examples, not a constant and desperate display of power, but calculated and strategic demonstrations. For Machiavelli, arrogance was more than a character. It was a strategic vulnerability. The arrogant leader becomes predictable. His need to appear superior makes him manipulable. Just appeal to his inflated ego, and he would take the bait, making impulsive and reckless decisions. The consequences of arrogance are devastating and multiple. It blinds. It prevents learning, drives away allies, sows resentment. It is a power that consumes itself, a flame that burns quickly and extinguishes in the darkness of solitude and failure. It seeks validation, but finds only disguised contempt. If you are looking to better understand this dynamic of power in human relationships and develop genuine confidence, subscribe to the channel to receive more content that will transform your way of seeing and exercising. Arrogance creates a cognitive bubble where reality is distorted to protect the fragile ego. The arrogant does not learn because they already know everything. They don't evolve because they already consider themselves perfect. They don't build authentic relationships because they treat people as mirrors or stepping stones. The internal cost is equally high. The constant vigilance to maintain the facade depletes mental and emotional resources. The perpetual fear of being discovered as insufficient creates a chronic tension that corrodes from within. And perhaps the most tragic consequence: arrogance prevents true self-knowledge. How could someone know their true strengths when they are too busy fabricating false greatness? How could someone face and integrate their shadows when they dedicate all their energy to denying them and projecting them onto others? There is no deeper loneliness than that of the arrogant at the top of their illusory tower, surrounded by flatterers who secretly despise them, unable to trust because they know at some level that the admiration they receive is as false as the image they project. But there is another path, a form of power that does not wear out, but strengthens over time, a presence that does not demand attention, but naturally attracts it. It is about this that we will speak next. There is a depth in genuine confidence that deserves to be explored beyond the surface. When we observe great historical leaders, influential thinkers, or even those people in our lives who emanate a natural authority, we perceive an almost paradoxical quality. Their strength seems to increase precisely in moments when they would be forgiven for showing weakness. This is the mark of authentic confidence. It does not disintegrate under pressure. On the contrary, it crystallizes, revealing its true nature. Like the diamond that only reveals its brilliance under extreme pressure, genuine confidence distinguishes itself from arrogance precisely in adverse circumstances. Machiavelli, observing the Italian courts of the Renaissance, noticed how truly powerful leaders maintained a quality that Italians called Sprezzatura, a kind of studied nonchalance, an apparent ease that hid meticulous effort. It wasn't the absence of effort, but the ability to make the difficult seem easy. As Baldassare Castiglione, a contemporary of Machiavelli, wrote in The Courtier, "Avoid affectation in all things, practice in all things a certain sprezzatura, so as to conceal all art, and make whatever is done or said appear to be without effort, and almost without any thought about it." This is the elegance of genuine confidence. It does not announce its internal battles, its nocturnal studies, its hours of practice. It presents only the final result, as if it were natural. While arrogance shouts about effort without showing results, confidence shows results without mentioning the effort. Marcus Aurelius deeply understood this dynamic. As emperor of Rome, he faced betrayals, wars, epidemics, and crises, but maintained an unshakable serenity that confused both allies and enemies. In his personal reflections, which he never intended to publish, he reveals the constant internal work that sustained this apparent. You have power over your, not over external events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The philosopher-emperor practiced what the Stoics called distinction between controllables, focusing energy only could directly influence, accepting the rest with equanimity. This practice creates an economy of emotional effort that results in serene presence, even in chaotic circumstances. Genuine confidence also has a peculiar relationship with time that fundamentally distinguishes it from arrogance. While arrogance lives hostage to the present moment, constantly seeking immediate validation, confidence works on a broader timescale. It plants seeds today knowing that the harvest may take time, invests in relationships without expectation of immediate return, builds reputation with consistent actions over time. Machiavelli observed this difference in his analysis of political strategies. The man who wishes to act entirely up to his professions of virtue soon meets with what destroys him among so much that is evil. Hence it is necessary for a prince wishing to hold his own to know how to do wrong, and to make use of it or not, according to necessity. This passage, often misinterpreted as a defense of cruelty, actually reveals a sophisticated understanding of strategic timing, knowing when to demonstrate different facets of oneself, when to advance, when to retreat. This sense of timing is characteristic of mature confidence. The confident leader does not react impulsively to every provocation. They know how to wait for the opportune moment, preserving energy and expanding options. Like a master chess player, they understand that the perfect move at the wrong time can be disastrous, while a simple move at the exact moment can completely change the game. There is also a physiological dimension in the manifestation of confidence that deserves attention. Contemporary studies in psychology and neuroscience confirm what Machiavelli intuited. The body is the stage where the battle between confidence and arrogance becomes visible. The genuinely confident person inhabits their physical space with full presence. Their posture is naturally erect without being rigid. Their breathing is deep and regular. Their movements are economical and deliberate. Their gaze is direct without being invasive. In contrast, arrogance often reveals itself in unconscious physical tensions. The clenched jaw, shallow breathing, exaggerated gestures, artificially modulated voice. The body doesn't lie, and even when words are carefully chosen, body language reveals the underlying truth of the internal state. Marcus Aurelius, even in his time, understood this mind-body connection. The soul takes on the color of its thoughts. Color it then with a sequence like this. Where life is possible, there also a good life is possible. This internal coloration inevitably manifests externally, creating that indescribable but unmistakable aura that distinguishes the confident presence from the arrogant posture. Genuine confidence also has a distinctive relationship with knowledge and ignorance. While arrogance pretends to know everything, confidence clearly distinguishes what it knows from what it doesn't know, and is perfectly comfortable with both. As Socrates observed, the beginning of wisdom is recognizing one's own ignorance. The confident person comfortably inhabits the Socratic paradox. They know that they don't know, and this recognition becomes a source of strength, not weakness. Machiavelli, in his advice to the prince, repeatedly emphasized the importance of honest advisors. A prince who is not wise himself cannot be well advised, unless by chance he has given himself up to the guidance of someone who rules him in everything, and is a very prudent man. In this case, he may be well governed, but it would not last long, because such a governor would in a short time take away his state. This passage reveals another aspect of genuine confidence: the ability to delegate without abdicating final responsibility, to listen without feeling diminished, to incorporate diverse perspectives without losing one's own vision. The confident leader builds strong teams because they do not fear being overshadowed. On the contrary, they understand that their brilliance increases when reflected in other talents. The fruits of confidence also extend to the domain of innovation and creativity. The genuinely confident person does not fear failure as an existential threat, but sees it as inevitable data in the growth process. This healthy relationship with error allows experimentation, calculated risk, iterative learning, all essential components of true innovation. Machiavelli, always pragmatic, advised, "Prudent men are accustomed to say, neither by chance nor without reason, that he who wishes to see what is to come should examine what has been. For all human events, whether present or future, have their counterpart in the past." Here is another mark of the ability to learn from models without falling into mere imitation, to absorb influences while maintaining authenticity, to respect traditions while innovating. Resilience, perhaps the most valuable fruit of genuine confidence in times of uncertainty, deserves special emphasis. While arrogance crumbles at the first sign of failure, authentic confidence possesses impressive regenerative capacity. Like the legendary phoenix, it can rise from its own ashes, not because it ignores the reality of fire, but because it understands the cyclical nature of existence. Marcus Aurelius, facing constant adversities, wrote, "The impediment to action advances action." What stands in the way becomes the way. This ability to reinterpret obstacles as opportunities, failures as lessons, criticisms as feedback, is the beating heart of resilient confidence. And finally, perhaps the most subtle and powerful aspect of genuine confidence, it is not static, but dynamic. It is not a permanent state achieved once and for all, but a continuous practice, a constantly renewed balance, a delicate dance between assertiveness and receptivity, conviction and flexibility, expression and listening. As Heraclitus wrote, "No man ever steps in the same river twice." The truly confident person understands that they themselves are like this river, constantly changing while maintaining their essence, adapting to new terrains without losing their fundamental direction, absorbing tributaries of knowledge while following their unique course toward the sea of wisdom. This dynamic this silent power that so fascinated is not an innate gift reserved for a fortunate few. It is an art that can be learned, a discipline that can be cultivated, a path that can be traveled by anyone willing to make the journey. Here lies the secret of Machiavellian nonchalance, the art of appearing disinterested, of controlling your reactions to control others' perception. It's not coldness, it's discipline. Genuine confidence doesn't need to announce itself, it is felt. It's the presence that enters the room and alters its dynamic without saying a word. This quality, which Renaissance Italians called Sprezzatura, is what separated the true prince from the mere pretender. It is the ability to remain composed under pressure, to respond instead of react, to keep a straight face when everyone around is losing composure. Observe the great players in any field, business, politics, diplomacy, even the art. They possess this mysterious quality, this ability to maintain a certain psychological distance from events, even when deeply involved in them. It's what allows the negotiator to wait for the right moment, the leader to stay calm during a crisis, the artist to accept criticism without losing vision. Controlling perception begins with controlling yourself. Your body language, your micro-gestures, the tone of your voice, the choice of your words, all of this communicates much more than the explicit content of what you say. When someone provokes you and you respond immediately, with evident emotion, you not only react to the provocation, you transfer power. The discipline of silence and observation is the second pillar of this mastery. Learn to observe more and react less. Let others reveal their cards first. In silence resides wisdom. In restraint, strength. He who masters his impulses masters the environment. Strategic silence is not just the absence of word. It is full presence of attention. It is the ability to hear not only what is said, but what remains unsaid. It is the art of reading the environment, of detecting underlying motivations, of perceiving subtle contradictions between words and actions. How to practice it? Start with small social experiments. In the next important meeting or conversation, challenge yourself to speak 30% less than you normally. Observe what happens. Notice how people fill the vacuum you leave. Notice how, paradoxically, your influence can increase when you decrease your verbal presence. Practice the art of questioning instead of constant affirmation. A well-formulated question not only obtains information, it directs the conversation, reveals intentions, establishes parameters. As Socrates demonstrated millennia ago, he who controls the questions often controls the dialogue. Sun Tzu, in The Art of War, teaches, "The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting, the confidence that doesn't exhibit itself, that remains calm under pressure, disarms opponents even before the confrontation. They expect a reaction and find a vacuum that destabilizes." This Chinese general of the 6th century BC understood something that Machiavelli would later echo. True power is not in winning conflicts, but in making them unnecessary. The superior warrior is one who wins without fighting, articulating the essence of strategic confidence, the ability to achieve objectives with economy of force through position, perception, and presence. Sun Tzu also taught, "If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles." This self-knowledge is the foundation of true confidence, not the inflated self-image of the arrogant, but the honest self-assessment of the strategist, knowing your strengths to leverage them, knowing your weaknesses to protect them or transform them. This millennial wisdom applies to all arenas of life, not just literal conflict. In relationships, in negotiations, in everyday life, the ability to maintain composure to respond strategically instead of reactively, to let your presence speak louder than your is what distinguishes the master from the. But make no mistake, this confidence is not a gift, it's an achievement, forged in the fire of self-analysis, in the silence of introspection, in the courage to face one's own shadows. It is a daily work of strengthening your center, of building your internal fortress. How to build this fortress? Begin with an honest inventory of your real capabilities, not those you wish to have, not those others say you have, but those you have consistently demonstrated through concrete actions. Identify your reaction patterns under stress, not to judge them, but to understand them and eventually transform them. Develop daily practices that strengthen your mental discipline. It can be formal meditation, it can be reflective writing, it can be Socratic dialogue with yourself. The method matters less than consistency. The goal is to develop the muscle of self-awareness, the ability to observe your thoughts and emotions without being completely identified with. Gradually expose yourself to challenging situations that test and strengthen your composure. Like an athlete who progressively increases the load to develop strength, seek challenges that force you to stay calm under increasing pressure. Each small victory in this field builds real confidence, based on experience, not imagination. Surround yourself with people who mirror both your strengths and your areas of growth, with honesty and compassion. Genuine confidence does not fear honest feedback. On the contrary, it actively seeks it, knowing that it is the fastest path to improvement. And perhaps most importantly, develop a healthy relationship with failure. True confidence doesn't come from never failing, but from knowing that you can survive and learn from any failure. It is resilience that distinguishes confidence from arrogance, the ability to fall, get up, learn, and move forward without unnecessary drama, without victimization narrative. As Nelson Mandela said, "I never lose. Either I win or I learn." This is the mindset of resilient confidence, the ability to reinterpret setbacks as feedback, obstacles as opportunities, criticisms as data. This path of mastery is not for the impatient or for those seeking magical solutions. It is a path of constant discipline, of accumulated small victories, of continuous refinement. But its fruits are incomparable, a presence that inspires, an influence that endures, a legacy that transcends. The difference is indeed brutal. Arrogance is an empty echo in a full room. Confidence is the room itself. Solid, unshakable, commanding attention without asking. One seeks approval, the other grants it. One feeds on external validation, the other generates its own light. Arrogance is a loan with very high interest. It seems to bring immediate power, but charges an ever-increasing price over time. Confidence is a long-term investment. It requires constant discipline, but generates compound returns that grow exponentially. Arrogance asks for recognition and receives only tolerance. Confidence offers value and receives genuine respect. Arrogance fears challenges because they may expose its fragilities. Confidence seeks challenges because it knows that it is in adversity that its strength is revealed more. Arrogance is static, a rigid position that eventually breaks under pressure. Confidence is dynamic, fluid like water, adaptable like, capable of absorbing blows and redirecting them. Arrogance is noisy, calling attention to itself. Confidence is magnetic, attracting attention to itself. What Machiavelli understood, what the great leaders and strategists of history demonstrated, is that true influence doesn't come from dominating others, but from mastering oneself. Not from manipulating perceptions through display, but from shaping them through authentic presence. You choose which path to follow. That of fleeting exhibition that dissipates with the first contrary wind, or that of cultivated presence that resists time and adversities. As Machiavelli would teach us, perception is reality, and the reality you project determines your destiny. This choice is not trivial. It is, possibly, the most consequential one you will make in your professional and personal life. It is not a single choice, made once and for all, but a series of small daily choices, of decision moments, where you choose to respond with genuine confidence or react with disguised arrogance. When you are criticized, do you choose to defend yourself reactively or receive the feedback with curiosity? When you achieve a victory, do you choose to display it ostentatiously or let the results speak for themselves? When facing a challenge, do you choose to pretend knowledge you don't have or admit the limits of your current knowledge? These micro-choices, consistently repeated, forge your character and determine your trajectory. As Aristotle wrote, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is not an act, but a habit. Machiavelli, the relentless realist, understood that true power doesn't come from titles or formal positions, but from the ability to influence perceptions and behaviors. And nothing influences more powerfully than the authentic presence of someone who has conquered the rare balance between self-confidence and humility, between assertiveness and receptivity, between conviction and openness. Think about it. Where have you confused confidence with arrogance in your own life? In which areas have you sought external validation instead of cultivating internal strength? How could your relationships, your career, your influence transform if you embrace the path of Machiavellian confidence? If this content has brought clarity to your life, subscribe to the channel right now for more profound analyses on power, psychology, and strategy. Don't miss any video that can transform your understanding of influence and leadership. Leave your reflection in the comments. Your experience can illuminate the path of others facing similar challenges. And if this message resonated with you, share it with those who need to hear it. Sometimes, a single insight can completely change the trajectory of a life. The line between confidence and arrogance is thin, but the difference in their results is brutal. Choose wisely. Cultivate patiently. Harvest abundantly. And remember Machiavelli's final words in The Prince. There is nothing more difficult to take in hand, more perilous to conduct, or more uncertain in its success than to take the lead in the introduction of a new order. The transformation from arrogance to genuine confidence is precisely that. A new internal order, once established, changes everything.